Apologies because I don't speak Italian. I'm Spanish, so he speaks French, English. So let's start with English. And I have the pleasure to co-present today with Gaël Escribe. So I think we have 20 minutes, so we need to be very to the point. Don't ask questions. After the brilliant presentations this morning, we would like to follow up with, I think an interesting theme has been discussed about AI. I think it's more than a fashion, it's a reality. So we've seen different examples, and it's been mentioned this morning, and together with Gaël, what we will try is to give you an overview of artificial intelligence in different businesses. On my side, I'll give you the perspective on the market research and intelligence industry, and Gaël will follow on with the distribution side. So I guess you have all practiced AI, yes? Maybe. Let me tell you about an anecdote. I was in Las Vegas Auto Show last week in Apex, and I don't know if you've heard about a Sphere. It's a concert scene where you can see impressive movies. U2 did 3 months of concerts last year, and there is a robot, 3 robots. They're called Aura, and I invite you to go and see that in YouTube because it's very impressive. You have a humanoid asking you, and you can interact with that robot, and it's a beautiful woman. When the people were asking questions, it was very impressive how this robot was interacting. She had a question about the current affairs in the US. Do you know what she responded? It was about the election, of course, because it was the 5th of November. And then the robot answered that she was not programmed to comment on political scene. So it gives you the degree of, I would say, sophistication of this type of artificial intelligence today. But let me give you some numbers to start with. I think it's interesting to have maybe some numbers so we realize what we are talking about. It's foreseen that the artificial intelligence will represent approximately 110 billion euros by 2030. Gaël will give you some numbers afterwards. And this is the size of a company like Nestlé or PepsiCo or even Huawei. So in annual revenue is that. So it's foreseen to grow a lot. What does it mean in terms of revenue? For instance, we have measured that it can create an increase of leads in marketing or sales, for instance, by 50%. How? Because we can categorize and segmentate better the customers and address their needs. So it gives you better results in your sales. It's obvious, but it's very sophisticated as marketing operations. And operational efficiency, this is one of the most applied in supply chain, logistics, etc. By 20% could be the increase in cost efficiency. And also innovation, we think also in innovation it can represent up to 30% of cost savings in everything related to customer relationships in call centers, etc. So those are just some examples. If I tell you what is AI, I guess you all have an idea. But I try to represent that. This is one graphic from McKinsey, and it shows you where artificial intelligence is positioned. So artificial intelligence is the ecosystem, and then you go deeper and deeper into the different, like an onion, yeah? So the Gen AI, as you can see, is just very next to the ChatGPT. So what is this technology? It's a machine which is trying to reproduce how the human thinks, or certain parts of the human think, and it's about learning. So you need to have a very good data content. So the better the data, the better the results, obviously, because the machine will learn. And then it needs very few input to improve a lot, yeah? But basically it's the data you input in and the quality of this data. So if you don't start with the data, you don't get anything. So we have different applications here. I have just summarized 3 of them, but there are many, and you will see more concrete ones in the next slides. So the first one is the images and videos, for instance. Today, this artificial intelligence is able to analyze. Imagine you take a picture of a damaged body of a car. So it will be able to help you to diagnose, what is the type of repair you need to do, how much painting do you need, and evaluate the cost of that repair, for instance. That's on the photo image. Then on the audio, speech, and language, this is one of the most used fields until now in the last 2 years. Why? Because it's combining text plus image. And this combination is helping in, for instance, all the semantics, the translations, the interpretations of data and text. And last but not least, the analytics. This is more on the market research, for instance. So it will help, for instance, to predict on the pricing. If you have a very good setup on pricing, it will help you to predict the potential movements of pricing in the future, in the next months, which is interesting from a pricing strategy point of view. And last but not least, the optimization. I was mentioning the stocks before, but it can be also on the supply chain and the forecast of the demand. So on this general overview, I'd like to come to the market intelligence. GiPA is a company I know Mark has presented this morning, Mark Adgetas, that you all know now, and from GiPA. And then we are embedding the artificial intelligence in our company. The 3 key challenges that we observed in the company are: the first one is that we need to protect the value of the data. So that's important. When you introduce AI in your companies, think about how you can also protect your data. Because from the moment that you put data in a ChatGPT, Copilot, and you name them, this data is lost. I mean, it's lost in the sense that the system has it. It's not protected anymore, it's public. And that's the first thing. The second point is our aim is to provide new services to our customers. So what are we going to provide? It will help us to be faster in the analysis. You need to have a knowledge internally. That's very important, to present your knowledge. So you need to train your teams to use that wisely. It's not that we can use it in another way. So you need to protect the data and then to use it. And if you're not an expert in the sector, you can also make a lot of mistakes in the interpretation of the data. So you need to keep the knowledge in-house. And then last but not least, of course, the training of the teams, as I mentioned. If I give you a concrete example of what we are doing, for instance, for us, it has helped us in 3 ways. The first one is that we have optimized the quality of the responses. As you know, sometimes a market research company is doing questionnaires. What we do is we improve our questionnaires because we measure all the answers that we get, and we understand what could be future trends to improve our questionnaires and our surveys. So it's helping us in gaining time and in adapting better the questionnaires we do. That's the first thing. The second one is in the data collection. Today we are using algorithms that are helping us to improve the speed in which we detect, I would say, mistakes or errors in capturing the data. And let me tell you, a report that was taking us 2 months to analyze, today we have reduced the time by 50%. That's important. And last but not least, in summarizing, AI is, I don't know if you've tested, but it's very good in doing executive summaries. So you can take, a report and try to summarize in 1 slide, and it does it. Of course, the report has to be premium quality, but it does help in taking some key insights, and this artificial intelligence is working well in this sense. How do we generate added value for our customers? Well, first one is, as I mentioned, we have today what we call a platform. Many of you are members of GiPA, so you might know it. The idea is to transform that platform in a hub. So we are not collaborating with any artificial intelligence platforms on a public side. We have our own platform of AI. So that's something that you need to make sure, if you implement that you are not opening to multiple sources to embed your data. So you need to keep that, I would say, a private, secure environment on a cloud to protect the data. What we do is that we can use data from outside to enrich our own data. That's what we are doing. And this is helping us also in improving our forecasting models. I think Mark talked this morning about the smart demand planning tool, which is helping us to foresee the trends of the market. And this is also helping us in reducing the time of calculation of that. It was taking just a weekend to calculate globally the forecast for 4 years, a weekend, full set of machines. And today we have reduced that to half a day. just so you get an idea on how it can help. And here you see, for instance, one example on the type of forecast that we do. At the beginning, this model had 14 variables. Today, we are increasing the number of variables to make it more, I would say, accurate. Yeah? Now, this is the nice part. There are also risks in AI, and it's important to understand what those risks are. For the ones who have tested, I guess, the models, you will see that sometimes these models can hallucinate, meaning that if there was wrong information embedded in the source, then you will get wrong data, or you will get inconsistencies. So it's very important that, I gave you a statistic for France, 68% of French people are using AI without informing the supervisor. So in your companies, it's important that you teach your, and you've trained your teams so they are aware of what they do. And this is what we call the ChatGPT shadow. So the dark side of it is not Dark Vader, but is just misleading information that can be there. And last but not least, I'd like to just mention that there is an AI, maybe you've heard of it, an AI Regulation Act. That has been already presented in 2023, but it's going to be live, let's say, in 2026. So, as it was mentioned this morning, sometimes the laws are more slowly than the technologies that are available, and that's a bit the challenge to regulate the AI as the internet was regulated some years ago. But I think it's a technology that is there to stay, and we need to adopt it and to learn with it.
So, good afternoon to all of you. Thanks, Maria, to welcome us on this relatively complex topic that we are trying to decomplexify for you as Almudena said, in 20 minutes. Now, I'd like to start with a few numbers. I think, Sylvia, you said the EIM market in Europe is estimated at 120 billion. Now, if you look at AI 2030, 110 billion. So we're speaking about scales that are almost equal. It's a revolution that has started, and this revolution should provide 15.7 trillion of contribution, of savings, of efficiencies by 2030, and that's a number that has been evaluated by PwC. On one side, there is a business. On the other side, there are plenty of efficiencies for our companies in the automotive aftermarket, and that's what I will try to highlight in the coming minutes. On the other hand, and that's an interesting number, I think, for Michael, for FAS, for the organization that is focused on sustainability, the data centers will represent 14% of emissions in 2040. Some of you are on Facebook. Facebook is owned by Meta. Meta made in 2023 roughly 40 billion of profits. Out of this 40 billion, they invested 30 billion in data centers and infrastructure. And that's, I think, a number that speaks by itself. So on the other side, we have a tremendous sustainability challenge with artificial intelligence. Now, this being said, the automotive has an enormous potential. And when I see the automotive, the independent aftermarket has an enormous potential to leverage, and we have to be aware of it. I will take some examples to illustrate that, of course. Now, if you look at specific areas where the automotive will be leveraging, either efficiencies or potentially top-line impacts, customer experience improvements, etc., you have fundamentally 6 areas where companies, startups, are busy at the moment trying to develop product services that some of you will utilize at short, midterm. On parts identification, when you know that we need approximately 8 million SKUs in the aftermarket with potentially 60,000 combinations, this is an area where artificial intelligence is going to be extremely present. Predictive maintenance is an opportunity for us. You will see it later. I will take a case it is clear that artificial intelligence with, I would say, the data involved will have a significant impact on the maintenance prediction. Now, pricing, it was mentioned by Almudena. Today, in the aftermarket, we have until, and this was mentioned by McKinsey last week at Apex, 100% of difference, a difference of 100% on pricing. From one country to the other, from one region to the other. So dynamic pricing will be accelerated by AI, and that will be for sure helping you in improving your margins. Now, the big one, of course, is inventory management. I'll take an example later as well. It's our challenge. We are either missing parts or in overstock. If we can mitigate that with AI, and this is already in place in a number of companies, it will help us enormously in our cash flows, in making, of course, operational savings. Supply chain optimizations. Lots of you are trying to reach the customer in 30 minutes. With AI, it seems that we will be even quicker in delivering our customers. And then last but not least, customer experience, personalized marketing and sales is an area that will help the top line, the turnover, to grow faster. So this is an ideal picture, and I will try to take a few examples at workshop level, at distributor level, taking also some concrete examples with 2 companies involved in AI already in the Nexus environment. Now, at workshop level, we have, of course, the big opportunity called predictive maintenance. By predicting what is going to happen, we are, of course, going to reduce the number of breakdowns, and we will extend the life of vehicle. So here we have a sustainable, I would say, tick mark in the box. This is a big one, and this is already, of course, in place, but this will only improve with the data collection and the data monitoring through AI applications. We're going to help as well our mechanics that utilize today standard diagnostic tools. It will definitely reduce the time, AI will reduce the time of diagnosing an issue, and it will provide operational efficiencies at workshop level by reducing the time in trying to identify what the issue is. These are 2 examples, 2 main examples, and of course, predictive maintenance is a big one for our industry. Now, there is a big one on education, and I know that Fotios will deal with that subject later on, this entire education subject in our industry, which is a challenge. How many times have we said that the workshops are, in a difficult position today because of the technology, exponential rise, etc., etc. Here we have even simulators that are going to come into the market. When a captain in a plane is doing hundreds of hours of simulators, we can imagine that maybe in certain schools or in certain, I would say, workshops, we'll have simulators to develop skills and trying to repair complex breakdowns. And this is coming up. So the educational aspect is, of course, one of the advantages that we are going to see soon at workshop level. Now, I don't like very much to show robots because it will give a very confused image of AI, and we'll come to it at the end. The human being is unique. Let's not confuse ourselves. But there is a possibility, indeed, to reduce time and costs, and we will see that in a number of workshops by automating a number of relatively easy operations with the use of robots. And that's one item that we might see before 2030. So these are, I would say, examples that some of you will adopt at short midterm. Now, let's go to the distributor. The distributor has, of course, significant costs involved in its logistics operations. The distributor that you are is involved in inventory management. It's sometimes a nightmare to find a balance between the forecast of the sales force and the final figures that I would say the supply chain manager will retain. The reality here is that with AI, and I will take an example just after, we will improve demand forecasting, and we will reduce shortages and we will increase our cash flow in the companies that will involve AI in their forecasting systems. We have stock optimizations and a number of automations, but the inventory side of it is an immediate application that some of you will be in a position to implement, both manufacturers and distributors, at short term, because there are lots of pilot cases going on in the market. Now, we have as well cost reduction, as I said, automations in warehouses that are envisaged, and here as well, pilot cases are being conducted. Now, let me take two examples. Of course, I will take Nexus-related examples because I'm personally involved in those companies, and it will be easier to express what is happening in those companies and what the AI impacts are for those companies and for their customers. One company is a French-based company called Market Parts. It's a company that has become the largest global platform, B2B platform between distributors. And symbolically, it's a company that has been created by a partsman, and it's a company now that is chaired. The chairman is a data man. He was the founder of Yukon. He's German, and he is transforming progressively this company with AI. MyTVS is another company that we have incubated in India. It is today the largest digital automotive platform in India. It has been incubated by Nexus, by TVS, an automotive leader. And funny, in those two companies, a very famous Italian family in the automotive sector has invested in those two companies, just to show that those companies are not just, I would say, remote ones. They are very close to your reality. Now, let's start with Market Parts. As I said, the challenge today, and it's not a new challenge, it's a recurrent challenge, you are missing parts or you have too many parts of a kind. It's very difficult to get to a service rate of 100%. The best of you are close to 92.5%, but this is a challenge. And if you look at the challenge, I would say, for a company like Market Parts, in fact, Market Parts has 20,000 buyers and sellers. So you can imagine the level of data. You can imagine what with analytics and AI you can bring on a daily basis to a manufacturer and a wholesaler. Market Parts is nothing else than the daily inventory. Market Parts knows what is in overstock, what is missing. And based on that, the data is collected by a number of manufacturers, a number of distributors, to have a more accurate demand prospect and forecast. That's something that has started lately and that is now developing. And that's the reason also why I was mentioning the chairman is coming from the data business. And he is the one that has seen that there was an immense opportunity for this company to help the industry to improve its inventory management. If you look at the numbers, if you look at, I would say, the shortage impact in the industry, we evaluate at 10% in Europe, the impact at 16% in US. So if you take a market size that is a bit different than the one that Sylvia was showing, in US and in Europe, shortages represent 44 billion in North America and 25 billion in Europe. So you can imagine that if we can reduce the level of shortages, which is a drama in our industry, this is an enormous, I would say, has an enormous impact, and this will be facilitated by the data analytics and by AI that Market Parts and others, of course, will provide to the industry. And as I said, this has started with a number of manufacturers. A number of manufacturers today have AI teams primarily focused on inventory management, and Market Parts is working on multiple cases since, I would say, Q2 of this year. And at the end of the day, what we call a data lake is the data center of Market Parts. This is being transacted by business intelligence and AI, and at the end, it goes to manufacturers and distributors as a service to improve their inventory management. Now, let me take another example, MyTVS, as I said, a digital platform. So the beauty of a digital platform is that you have on one side your network and on the other side your customers. And having on one side your network and on the other side your customers and being fully digitalized, you manage an enormous quantity of data. And that's, of course, something that we don't have in the traditional sector as developed because we are not digitalized as MyTVS can be. And of course, the beauty of this model is that with the data, you can start to play. And MyTVS has, since its foundation, started to work on predictive service management very significantly. Of course, it's facilitated by the fact that in India, the access to data is easier than in Europe. We don't have the restrictions in India similar to the ones that we have in Europe. But this being said, the idea behind this platform was, of course, to utilize the data to improve the predictive service, to improve customer experience, and at the end, to gain more customers. And if you look at MyTVS, which is in fact under a company called Key Mobility, we see that predictive service maintenance is a key item. MyTVS is utilized also by insurance companies to evaluate used vehicle, and that's a big activity. They have started to automate operations in 300 workshops in India. And at the end of the day, they have recruited plenty of people thanks to the increase in activity. Now, based on, I would say, those numbers, those facts, those companies that in our ecosystem are trying to be part of the AI revolution, I'd like to share with you 3 thoughts. First, I personally didn't know what AI was 18 months ago. And I'm impressed by this immense speed that we deal with. You know, no later than a few days ago, ChatGPT said, fundamentally they said, forget Google. Google is almost dead. We are going to, search, and our kids will search, and everybody will search through AI. So it's too big to be ignored. It's something that needs from each of you, I think, to be curious first, and then to get in the details, because it will impact you without even, being aware of it, and that's something that is absolutely essential for your companies. The second thing is that there are proved efficiencies today, and those efficiencies are growing exponentially. But on the other side, let's not be naive. There's an immense sustainability challenge that is hidden today. Nobody speaks about it, but a data center consumes energy, and at the end of the day, a data center is, as I said, is going to represent 15% of CO2 emissions. So there is an immense task here to reduce that. Now, the big risk I see is that some of us are going to collect data, are going to be in a position to be actors of the artificial intelligence. The problem we have is that we have a few giants, 5, 6 giants, that are leading this market, and we have choices to make in the future. Are we going to sell the data and let them play in our ecosystem? Or are we going to transform ourselves our data with software engineers and build the processes that the aftermarket needs? I would be more in favor for the second option, because we are simply independent by nature. So the ones that will be tempted to sell data, like newspapers do today. Le Monde in France makes more money by selling data to ChatGPT than by selling papers in France. Or shall we keep the data for us, transform the data, and make the data available by companies that we will create? And I will be really inclined to go for the second chapter. And I think that if there are entrepreneurs in the room, I would be very, very, very happy to talk to you about that. Thank you very much.